Hi, my name is Nikki. Some of you guys may know me from playing Killer Instinct. For some of you, this may be your first time seeing me altogether. Regardless of whether or not this is your first time seeing me here on YouTube, go ahead and be just like Thanos and Marvel snap that subscribe button. This channel is totally going to be dedicated to card games, games like Marvel Snap, and any other card games that I may venture to into the future. As a fighting game player, we tend to really enjoy games with very fast-paced decision making and very high pressure situations. And in card games, it's still very high pressure, but you have more time to really think about what the most optimal play is going to be. So it's very different from a fighting game, but there's still a lot of the same competitive similarities about min-maxing your decision making that I love. In a game like Marvel Snap, there are many factors that exist within the gameplay, like how certain cards interact with each other or within the different locations that exist in the game. Then you also have the snap mechanic, which will increase the total amount of cubes that the victor will receive at the end of the match. Let's say you're playing a pretty good deck, but you don't have the combo that you need in hand. You can play out the rounds until you see if you get the combo, and if you don't get it, then you're kind of in trouble. If you see that your opponent is set up on the board and they snap and you don't have your win condition, it's best to escape and just give them the cube. You don't have to retreat until you see your opponent snap, because playing it out for 2 cubes is almost always worth it just to kind of see what's going on. And if you are in a bad situation, you could always escape for the 1 cube loss, cut your losses, and get out of there. I can't even begin to count how many times that I've gotten super greedy with a pretty subpar hand that wasn't really going to win me the game and lost all 8 cubes because the opponent was just simply better set up than I was. You can't afford to make these mistakes. This is going to hinder your ladder climb. You are never going to get to infinite this way if you keep making these mistakes. Now you might be asking yourself, how am I supposed to climb in the first place? I don't even have the broken pool 4 and pool 5 cards yet. I don't have Black Panther, or I don't have Zabu or Silver Surfer, and then all the crazy new cards that are coming out. How am I supposed to win with just these simple pool 1 decks? And the true answer is that you still can climb with the very early cards. For example, in pool 1, when you start the game, you're given access to some card combinations that you will use for the entirety of the game unless they change the cards. Cards like Odin and Ironheart that go together very well, or the classic Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur, which I still see to this day. And I'm very far into pool 3, almost in pool 4. So it's not all about the cards that you don't have. It's about the cards that you do have, using them at the right times in the right order. And if you don't get the cards that you need when you need them, get out of there. Like I said before, you're just gonna lose a cube and move into your next game that you can hopefully win 2, 4, even 8 cubes. As a new player getting into Marvel Snap, the most important thing you need to know is the cards and how they're used. Just because Winter Soldier and Captain America go together in the comics and in the shows doesn't mean they work well together in a deck. Winter Soldier, aka Bucky Barnes, is used in a destroy type deck where you have to destroy the card to get the benefit of the card, whereas a card like Captain America is used more in ongoing type decks. Understanding these cards and their abilities means understanding the other cards around them and how you can use them to synergize. For example, you wouldn't play a card like Vulture if you didn't have a card like Cloak or Doctor Strange or Heimdall to be able to move that card to receive the benefit. You would use Vulture and those other cards that I just mentioned in a move type deck that is based around the movement mechanic. You wouldn't play a card like Morbius unless you had a way to discard your cards, whether it's with something like Moon Knight or Gambit, Hellcow, any way to actually receive the benefit of Morbius's effect, which is increased power for every discarded card from your hand. Having this knowledge of how cards are used and what other types of cards they synergize with is also good when you're the one on the receiving end. And when you see your opponent play certain types of cards, then you kind of know what to expect. If you see your opponent plays Patriot, you can expect your opponent to start playing cards that have no abilities, so they receive the benefit from the Patriot. We can use this card knowledge to our advantage. If we're dealing with a Patriot, he can only be played as soon as turn 3, assuming there's no energy manipulation going on between other cards or location. He's going to be played on turn 3 or later. So let's say he's played on turn 3. That means the opponent has 3 turns left, assuming there's no limbo, to use the Patriot's effect. Maybe on turn 4 your opponent plays Mystique to double up on the effect from the Patriot. Maybe on turn 5, they play just a big, no ability, huge card like Abomination, which is now going to have plus 13 power total. And then let's say on turn 6, they throw out an Ultron, which all of his drones are going to be affected by the Patriot. If your opponent has a combination like this, it's very likely that they could possibly win the game. But if you start to see some other things, or you see them start to skip turns, then you know that your chances of winning the match are increased because they're not getting all that value out of the Patriot as they normally would be. The best way to learn all of the cards and all of their abilities is simply by playing the game, interacting with different players who use different cards and different decks and synergize in different ways. You will become more and more familiar with these situations as you continue to play the game, therefore learning more about the game. And if you lose to a crazy combination that you haven't seen before, at least you might have it in mind for the next time you come across it. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you found this Marvel Snap guide useful, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care, everybody.